If you don't mind, I'm going to mute everyone. So good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had a good night's sleep last night. It's like as beautiful as ever this morning, and I'm very excited because we have some relatives in town, and we're going to do a walk over the Hudson. So get some steps in, enjoy the sunshine and the cool weather. So let's get going. So I'm just going to put my hair up. We're going to start with some breathing. So if you're new to this class, so QiGong basically is a moving meditation. Well, it's a combination of things. It's a gentle stretch. It's a reconnection to the breath. And it is a way to meditate, but incorporates movement into it. So it is a way of connecting the physical body, our emotional center, our consciousness, our spirit, whatever you want to call the background energy of who we are, that's sort of animating us and having the thoughts. So just go at your own pace. If anything doesn't feel right, then stop. This is a practice that is very much personal, internal. It's not necessarily about what the shapes look like. It's about how you feel moving through the shapes and moving through the movements, how you're feeling, how you're breathing, how you are paying attention. So that's why it's a great meditation, because it really is a way of kind of bringing our attentiveness into the present moment. So on that note, let's start with lower abdominal breathing. So one hand on the abdomen below the belly button, about an inch and a half below, and the other hand on top. Let's start with a big sigh. So a nice inhale and then a nice strong exhale through the mouth, and then do it two more times. Inhale. And then one more time. Inhale. And now let's contain the breath. So exhaling through the mouth is more of a purging type of breath work where we are releasing energy. But when we start to slow the breath down, we want to cultivate energy. Keeping the mouth closed and breathing in through the nose and out through the nose is a way of bringing in and containing that life force or breath. So inhale nice and slowly. And a nice slow exhale. And a nice slow inhale. And whether you are at the beach, which some of you are, you can either use even the sound of the waves, if you can hear them coming in, out, and how the breath, when we are quiet and we're listening, has that same quality of coming in like wave coming into the shore as we breathe in. And then as we exhale, as the wave kind of goes back in and merges back with the sea. So you can actually listen to your own breath and start calming the mind, just like you're listening to waves at the ocean. So if you are not already aware, Qi Gong is actually two terms merged together. Qi meaning breath or life force energy. It's what the energy that manifests as, our animation. And then Gong is loosely translated as skillfulness or work. So it is a merging of energy and being skillful at that energy, how we can be skillful at managing our own energy. And if we open the eyes, we're actually going to start in a wider stance. So we usually start with, not always, but usually start with some spinal cord enlivening exercises. So we're going to do knocking on the door of life in a wider stance. So knocking on the door of life is a rotation at the waist, and the arms are nice and loose. But with a wider stance, there's going to be a little bit of a weight shift. So we start turning from the waist, the arms start to knock across the lower abdomen and the lower back. And then there's a little bit of a weight shift here. So you'll turn to one side, you'll feel the hip slightly opening, and then turn to the other side, and the other hip is opening. We're knocking across the lower abdomen and the lower back, which is the area that we call the door of life. So we start opening up the spine, sending little baby shock waves from the bottom so that the energy rises up all the way to the head, the brain, and we start to feel a little more awake, a little more energized. And let's come up just below the collarbone. So we're still knocking across the back, but now that front arm is knocking right around the area of the lungs. And then all the way to the tippity top of the shoulders. And then let's travel back down below the collarbone. And then back down to the waist. And then let's start to slowly unwind. So now let's go into, we're going to stay at a wider stance. We're going to go into a little bit of swimming dragon. So this is really great at strengthening. It's great for the whole body, strengthening the lower legs. It's getting movement through the spine, especially into the area between the shoulders, the shoulder blades, and the head and neck. So we'll start with the palms together right at the center of the chest. And then if you want a little bit more of a challenge in this sequence, a wider stance is going to be a little bit more challenging. If you want to be a little bit closer together, that's totally fine. But the movement here is we're going to be weight shifting right to left. So as we shift the weight over to your left, the hands are going to come across also to the left. So you're shifting over to one side, the hands come across, keeping the palms nice and firm together. Then you turn and look in the opposite direction. So you see a little bit of a stretch through the neck. And then come to the center, bring the hands back to the center of the chest as your weight comes to the center. And then shift now over to the right. And as you do, the hands come across over to the right. So you're moving your hips and your hands in one direction, and then you turn and look in the opposite direction. And then come back to the center. And as you come back to the center, you might feel a little bit of a dropping down. And then we come back over to the left, turn and look right. And we start to pick up a little bit of momentum here. So shifting the weight, trying to keep the arms kind of neutral in terms of they're going to be just coming across horizontally. So there's no real deviation vertically. There's a little bit of a dip and then coming over, looking the opposite direction. And then for the breath, whatever feels natural, but if we start to slow the breath down and we're moving on the breath, then you might find inhaling in one direction and exhaling the other direction might feel pretty natural, but whatever feels good for you. So shifting the weight, building some heat in the quads, the legs, a nice stretch through the arms, the shoulders, the neck. So it's a stretch, a little leg strengthening, and a little cardio here. So your heart might start to elevate a little bit. And then let's come to the center for a moment. You can straighten the legs and let's pause here, reconnect to the breath. So if you inhale, open your hands out to the sides and look up. And then exhale, come back to the center. And then again, inhale and exhale. And then one more time, it's inhale and exhale. So we are going to do that one more time. I'm just noticing a safety pin on the ground here. So again, come into a little bit of a squat here. This time we'll start over at the right. So shifting the weight over to the right foot, and the hands come across over to the right and turn and look left, then into the center. Now over to the left and look right, to the center. So just slowly moving back and forth, really feeling the movement between the shoulder blades. So it's really a great way of opening up the head, neck, and shoulders. And it's good for the heart, it's good for circulation, moving energy through the lower body, up the spine. And then let's come to the center, straighten the knees, and let's reconnect to the breath again. Inhale, look up. And exhale, back to the center. And again, inhale. And exhale. One more time, it's inhale. And exhale. Okay, let's slow the breath down now. So let's bring our feet back to our narrow stance. So about outer hip distance apart. Let's do a little chi massage. So chi massage is just knocking across certain areas of the body, certain meridian pathways to help awaken the energy. So we'll start in the center of the chest. So you want to knock enough that you're feeling a vibration. So you don't want to give yourself a bruise, or if you have an injury or something is going on and there's a space that really you should not be knocking, if it's an open wound or something. But in general, enough force that you're feeling a little vibration, because it's like agitating, right? When you're cooking, you want to stir things up. So we're just kind of mobilizing energy. It's in the emotional center here. And then come over to the front of the right shoulder and let's travel down the inside of the arm. So the inner elbow, down the forearm, into the palms and fingers. And then we'll travel from the fingertips up the outside of the arm, all the way back up to the shoulder. And then we'll go down the inside again. And then back up. And then third time's the charm. 3 times. Travel down. And then back up. Center of the chest. And now the front of the left arm. Same thing, traveling down the inside. And then coming up the outside of the arm. There's a specific reason for this, and that's the yin channels, Chinese medicine, acupuncture channels, travel down. The yin channels travel down the inside of the arm, and then the yang channels, the 3 yang channels, travel up the outside of the arm, back up. So we're helping to open up that circuitry. all the way up, coming to the center of the chest, and then let's drop down to the solar plexus area. Travel over to your right. This is the liver, the gallbladder, sending a little vibration into the internal organs. And then come over to the right now, the spleen and stomach. Well, stomach's more central, spleen is more over to the right, the left, your left. And then let's come below the abdomen. And then let's go all the way around to the back. So from the base of the rib cage, down the lower back, right to the sacrum. The sacrum is this triangular bone that's right at the base of the sacrum. So we travel up and down. And then from here, we'll travel down the back of the legs. So starting at the top of the hamstrings, we'll travel down the back behind the knee, down the calves, all the way to the feet and the ankles. And then we'll travel up the inside. So the inner ankles, inner lower leg, inner knee, back up to the hips. And let's come back around and we'll do that 2 more times. So traveling down the back and then coming up the front. And then 1 more time. And let's stay here, right at the hip crease for a moment. We're knocking right at the junction of where the legs meet the torso. This is an area that are very tight on a lot of us and where we hold a lot of emotions, tight hip flexors. Let's come to the outside of the thighs, the hips, and then come back just over the navel. And then drop the hands down and let's close our eyes for a moment. Just noticing. Maybe you have some tingling sensations. As we start to mobilize our energy, we start to notice the more subtle things. And then let's open the eyes and we'll do a little stretch for the head, neck, and shoulders before we go into our flows. So let's do spreading the feathers, but this time let's make our fingers and thumbs into these little beaks, like your little chickens. And then we're going to have the fingers facing up. So the back of the wrists are facing towards the earth. So you're flexing your wrists. So you might feel a little more stretched through the upper arms and the inner side of the upper arms. And then let your head tilt over to your left. And then stretching the hands towards the earth. You should feel the stretch even more. The more you press down through the hands, the more you'll feel a stretch through the arm and the shoulder and the neck. And then very gently, just let your head roll to the back of your left shoulder. And then on the exhale, let it roll across your shoulder so you're looking down towards the earth. So just a slight oscillation of your head back and forth. Releasing any tension. Using your breath to help open up All of these little spaces that get so tight. And then on the next exhale, let your head fall all the way forward, chin to your chest. And then slowly let's roll over now to the right. And then slowly let your head roll to the back of your shoulder as you look up on the inhale. And then exhale, rolling over your shoulder, looking down. Just letting gravity assist in opening up by gently pulling your head down. And on your next exhalation, let's bring the head all the way forward, drop the arms down, slowly bring your head upright. And then from here, before we go into our flows, let's do a little shaking. So I'm going to start bouncing the knees. So shaking the lower body, and then allow the shoulders to be nice and relaxed. And then we start shaking the wrists and the elbows. And maybe allowing the breath now, the exhale, to come out the mouth. And then we'll start to slow down. So now we've done the prep work. We've stretched, we've breathed, we've released, let go. And now we should feel a little more open and energized and feeling tingling and whatever sensations you're feeling. And now we're going to go into our slow meditative movements as a way of uh, increasing our energy reserves and really diving into the connection of our mind to our emotional center and our physical body. So let's start with the arms nice and loose. Just make sure that you're not holding your shoulders and up like you're wearing your shoulders as earrings. Let them melt down. And let's just start with open the flow for a minute or two. So the arms are nice and loose. And on the inhale, the arms are going to float up to shoulder height. And then on the exhale, first the elbows drop and then the hands float back down. So inhale, rising up, and exhale, rising down. So I like going through some of the main principles of QiGong, especially in these flowing movements. One is that we're moving with the breath. So think of inhaling as we're expanding or rising up. And then as we exhale, things come back down towards the earth. The second is that we move from the center. So always thinking, even with something like open the flow, right? Think about moving on the inhale. There's a little bit of weight shift to the toes. And as we do, this sort of wave is happening throughout the body that extends out through the arms. And as we exhale, there's a little bit of a sinking back towards the heels. So think about inhale, moving from the center as the arms rise. And then as we exhale and sink down, right? The movement, the the hips, the waist, kind of shift back towards the heels. So moving on the breath, moving from the center. And then moving with relaxation. Where can we soften? Like as we move, is there tension that we can let go of? So even in open the flow, thinking about inflating like a balloon. And as we exhale, think about the balloon deflating. And the arms are nice and relaxed. No tension in the wrist, the fingers even. Think about maybe even wiggle the fingers a little bit, release tension through the hands. And we move slowly. So even in this flow, we're slowing the breath down. And by doing that, the movement slows down. We have more presence. And the slower we go, often requires even more attentiveness. I'm just feeling the space between the fingers as your arms rise up, feeling the space, the airflow between the fingers, across your arms, across your hands. And as we move slowly on the breath, releasing tension, our nervous system is a big exhale. It's not having to constantly be on guard for danger. We create a little space, a little buffer. So the other side of the nervous system, the parasympathetic, where blood flows freely throughout the internal organs. The breath slows down, the heart rate slows down, the wave patterns in the brain change. Like a little mini vacation. And let's bring the hands down into our chi ball. So imagine that you're holding an invisible ball and then placing our awareness in the space between the palms. Maybe starting to feel a little sensation between the two palms in the space. And from here, we'll go into a flow called Enlightened Tiger. So we start with the back of the fingers down in the lower, in front of the lower abdomen. The back of the fingers come together like the nail beds. And as we inhale, you're going to raise, these fingers are still touching, raising up through the center line of the body, all the way up above the head. And as we do, you're going to turn. So this is where that moving from the center really comes handy. We're going to turn slightly to your left. And as we do, the hands come all the way up. And then release the hands. And then we're going to make little tiger claws with our hands as we're above the head. And as we do, allow the tiger claws to come down. So the right arm is in front, the left arm is in back, and we're going to bring the tiger claws all the way down to the earth. And as we bring the hands down, come back to the center. The back of the fingers come together again, the nail beds, and then we inhale. So the inhale is through the center. Now start turning over to the right, release the hands into our tiger claws, and then we're tracing down the front and back with our tiger claws. And then again, we come back to the center. So I'm also I'm bending slightly, sinking down. And as we inhale, think about rising up, turning from the center to the left, and then exhale down. And so for this portion of the flow, we inhale coming up. As we go into our finger position with a tiger claw, make it pretty substantial. You want a lot of energy through the palms and fingertips, like you're gripping something and we're pulling down. And then release the grip. So your hands are looser and then they float up the center, turning to the left. Tiger claws, nice and strong as we exhale down. And then release and then inhale. So this enlightened tiger, as we stretch forward and back, thinking about that front claw, right? Reaching towards the future, and the back tiger claw reaching towards the past. And then as we come up right through the center, this is the present moment. Turning to the right now and using this flow as a way of honoring, right, our experiences, the past, acknowledging, I should say, right, but then not ruminating too much and into what has happened in terms of kind of gleaning the gold from past experiences, good and bad, or sort of extracting everyone. I'm not sure what just happened. Sorry about that. Um, okay, well, we're just gonna, this is what Qigong is all about, right? It's like, okay, we just got I got disconnected. We're gonna go right back into it. So coming back, bringing the breath, our attentiveness back to this moment, fingers down the lower abdomen, and then inhale, rise up. So going back to what I was saying about the future, right? Recognizing that worrying, we all know, is a drain, right? Having plans and having vision for the future, but as we know, life rarely unfolds as we expect, right? And we have expectations. When expectations aren't met, that for a lot of us, that can cause a lot of anxiety. So if we know that life sort of rarely meets us where we want to be, where we have our power is in the present moment. So acknowledging that the energy that we put into right now, how we're feeling emotionally and physically, kind of approaching it from a sense of relaxation can help facilitate energy in a certain direction. And usually it's positive. So even if we sort of experience things and it's not what we intended, or things seemingly go off track, right? Sort of acknowledging it, coming back to the center, feeling grounded where we are, and then being able to recenter, kind of refocus. And oftentimes we find ourselves in a whole new path that we would never have been on, and oftentimes maybe even better. So enlightened tiger, we're sort of letting go of our worries or ruminations and bringing in gratitude for past experiences and inspiration and excitement about the possibilities of what can be. And then coming back to the center and feeling really grounded. Let's do one more to each side. And then we'll exhale back into our chi ball. Let's regroup for a moment. Feel the space between your palms. And then from here, we're going to turn that energy. So we kind of acknowledge our past, have maybe excitement or vision or inspiration for the future, coming back to the present moment so we can mix all of that together. And then we'll go into single armed turn the wheel. So now, just like a wheel, I like thinking about a grist mill, right? We have all of this water and we have this wheel that's just helping to churn to keep things moving, to not be stagnant. So we're going to turn our inner wheel of energy here through something called the microcosmic orbit. It's basically this movement through the center from the lower dantian, the body, the emotional part of who we are, and our consciousness, our mind. So we're going to turn slightly to your right, and then we're going to bring your left hand up the central line of the body and then reach forward, coming down in a big circle back to the center. I'm going to turn slightly now to the left as the right hand comes up. So I'm turning, my palm is facing out, and my fingers are reaching up through the center above the head, and then reach forward. And as the hand comes down, we're coming back to the center. So there's still this slight turning from the center, right? And as we do, we're just bringing one hand up through the center and then exhaling it back down. So the hand starts close to the body and then exhale forward and back down. So we're making a nice circle, moving out and coming down to the center. So we're just inhaling up and then exhaling forward and down. Think about mixing all of that internal energy, raising it up and then exhaling back down. Moving from the center, moving on the breath. So inhaling up, exhaling forward and down. turning that wheel. It's really the wheel of life. It's the wheel of our internal life force, how it's moving through us. It's that warmth. It's the breath as we inhale, right? We inspire, inspiration, inspiring, breathe, taking in the spirit, that life force, and then exhaling and feeling it move through the body, the mind, our emotions. Mixing it all together. And then let's one more exhale forward. Let's come back to our chi ball one more time. And then let's bring the feet together. We'll finish this session with centering. So we'll start with your right arm. We're going to inhale it out to the side, all the way up, right above the crown of the head, and then exhale your hand down through the center of the body. And now the left inhale. Nice slow exhale, bringing everything down the center, right in front of the lower abdomen. Inhale. And one more time to each side. Inhale. And last one. And let's bring everything now back into the center, hands below the belly button, one hand on top of the other. And let's pause here for a moment, just bringing one last moment of focused attention on our internal reservoirs, where energy is stored right here. Feeling grounded, but also expansive. And when you're ready, you can crack your eyes open. Thank you, everyone. I
Thank
aw.
you.
Sorry about the little mishap. Something happened and I got bumped off. But I also wanted to let you know, in case you did not get my newsletter, that my announcement. So we've been doing Qigong for how many years now? A long time. And I've decided, rather than having everything go through Eka, I've decided to make the Qigong portion its own thing, because it's becoming such a great thing on its own, even outside of the practice of Ehrenkampf acupuncture and herbs, that I've created a sister company called Ekam Qigong, which is Ehrenkampf Alchemy of Movement Qigong. So it's going to be it's a sister to Eka, but I like having the separation, since one is really clinical and more medical, and this is more esoteric, and I want people to be able to navigate if they want to kind of incorporate both or just do one versus the other. And we'll be doing some retreats that, you know, might be in different states. And it's just good to have a very clear delineation of like what is specifically movement-based practice versus the clinical aspect. So Ekam QiGong is going to be sort of where, if you might see my emails coming more from that email address. We have a separate website and everything. So just letting you know that with your help, with the past 6 or 7 years, that this has become such a great thing that it really needs its own space. So this is in honor of that. It was time to do that. So thank you,
Congrats.
everyone.
Great.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much. And I hope, yeah, more things to come, more exciting announcements, but this is the start. So thank you all again. And I hope you have a really fantastic weekend. It's a beautiful day.
Have a good weekend. Thank you.
See you
Bye.
Monday.
See you Monday.
Bye.